Essays on Untouchables and Untouchability Social by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Chapter 4, Part 22. This story of Trisanku, it will have been observed, differs materially from the one quoted above from the Harivansna, but brings about more distinctly the character of the conflict between Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. When all the gods and rishis had departed at the conclusion of the sacrifice, Vishwamitra said to his attendant devotees, "This has been a great interruption to our austerities which has occurred in the southern region. We must proceed in another direction to continue our penances." He accordingly went to a forest in the west and began his austerities anew. Here, the narrative is again interrupted by the introduction of another story, that of King Ambarisha, king of Ayodhya, who was, according to the Ramayana, the 28th in descent from Ikshvaku and the 22nd from Tirsanku. Vishwamitra is nevertheless represented as flourishing contemporaneously with both of these princes. The story relates that Ambarisha was engaged in performing a sacrifice when Indra carried away the victim. The priest said that this ill omened event had occurred owing to the king's bad administration and would call for a great expiation unless a human victim could be produced. After a long search, the royal rishi Ambarisha came upon the Brahman rishi Richika, a descendant of Brigu, and asked him to sell one of his sons for a victim at the price of 100,000 cows. Richika answered that he would not sell his eldest son, and his wife added that she would not sell the youngest. Eldest sons, she observed, being generally the favorites of their fathers, and youngest of their mothers. The second son, Sunasepa, then said that in the case he regarded himself as the one who was to be sold, and desired the king to remove him. The 100,000 cows, with the millions of gold pieces and heaps of jewels, were paid down, and Sunasepa carried away. As they were passing through Puskara, Sunasepa beheld his maternal uncle Vishwamitra, who was engaged in austerities there with other rishis, threw himself into his arms and implored his assistance, urging his orphan, friendless, and helpless state as claims on the sage's benevolence. Vishwamitra soothed him and pressed his own sons to offer themselves as victims in the room of Sunasepa. This proposition met with no favor from Madhushyanda and the other sons of the royal hermit, who answered with haughtiness and derision, How is that? How is it that thou sacrifices thine own sons and seeks to rescue those of others? We look upon this as wrong and like the eating of one's own flesh. The sage was exceedingly wroth at this disregard of his injunction, and doomed his sons to be born in the most degraded classes like Vasishtha's sons, and to eat dog's flesh for 1,000 years. He then said to Sunasepa, When thou art bound with hollowed cords decked with a red garland and anointed with unguents, and fastened to the sacrificial post of Vishnu, then address thyself to Agni, and sing these two divine verses, Gathas, at the sacrifice of Ambarisha. Then shall thou attain the fulfillment of thy desire. The end.